What's happening, everybody? Thanks for coming back and joining us here for the Pavement Group podcast. This is episode 4. Today, we are going to be talking about the rapid changes that are happening in parking lots all across America. Due to the COVID-19 crisis, a lot of businesses, a lot of our clients, a lot of people that we have seen out there have had to really adapt their parking lots from a striping and parking and curbside and all that sort of stuff. Fashion on the fly here. And it's been fascinating what we've seen out there and the projects we've been able to be a part of. And we want to share some of what we've learned along the way with you. So thank you for joining us here again for episode 4. I want to introduce my co-host, Mr. Mike Hoogheem. Thank you for being here, Mike.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Todd.
You betcha. And Mr. Brian Hess.
Man, it's always a pleasure to be here with you, bro. Appreciate
pleasure
you
to have
doing this for us, man.
Well, we appreciate you taking a little time out of your 41st birthday to join us, Brian. So thank you very much. Happy birthday, my friend. So let's dive right into it. Obviously, we are in a time of change. We're in a time where things are unprecedented and people are trying to figure things out. What I love about America and about doing business in America is how, the free market system is how people get creative and overcome challenges and meet them head on. And, parking lots, nobody's really thinking that much about parking lots. We do because it's what we do. But, in the regular population out there, they've had to undergo massive transformations to adapt to this new business, which is, curbside pickup. And a lot of people are using their parking lots to expand restaurant space and even shopping space. So it's presented some unique challenges. We've had a chance to talk to some properties and facilities managers and business owners around the country about it. So the first question I want to put out there and discuss a little bit is how important it is to have your parking lot in an easy to understand format that makes these changes on the fly, a little easier to do, a little more adaptable for your staff. What are you seeing out there, Brian, that's been successful for certain facilities managers?
Yeah, I think, man, the biggest thing that people have missed over the years, because there really hasn't been much available to them with regard to how to get my arms around all of these properties that I have, whether it's a regional property manager that has multiple properties across one city or one that has across multiple states, or in some cases we work with companies that are across the whole country. And so there hasn't really been anything available to property and facility managers until recently, until like the world of, GPS photos and things like that came around. And so that is one of the things that, we have worked with many clients to develop, is kind of that portfolio view of what they've got. So, what is the inventory of the assets that you actually have under your management? And what we've seen, man, is whether it's these types of things that they have to adapt to kind of get their parking lots up to speed, to kind of change with the times, or whether it's just the standard everyday, hey, I've got a maintenance issue. Having those parking lots in a portfolio fashion that they can easily go in and look at the facts and data that are attached to their properties, have aerials that show them exactly where things are, have ground photos, taken on site to show them what these sites look like. It really prepares them for anything, for these types of changes where they need to put some curbside stuff in. That information allows them to pivot that fast, right? They can just go to these sites. We can work with them, or other companies can work with them to kind of develop a strategy. But having that information at your disposal is really the most critical part, because if they don't have it, then they're really taking a step back. Okay, how do we get this information? We have to compile it all. And so it takes a long time to do that when change is necessary, versus if you have all the information, you're ready to roll right now.
Absolutely. No, that's great. Mike, anything that you'd add to that?
I guess, partnering with our clients the way that we do to perform property assessments has allowed us to gather all this information for them. And honestly, it's helped us as contractors too, because we can see their whole portfolio and are able to help them make decisions portfolio wide instead of just individual location based. So being given that whole overhead view of what they've got going on has allowed them and us to create scopes that are more representative of the whole portfolio, other than just try and just throw dollars at each individual site.
Sure. Well, let me ask you this, Mike. So as you know, more of these businesses and more of the world is really going to sort of that pickup model and maybe curbside, because we don't know how long we're in this. We really don't. You know, it's sort of an unknown at this point, and people need to be ready for anything. What specific challenges are you seeing that some of your customers are having designing this?
Well, they want to put this up front and center, but yet you have other things that are stopping you from doing that. So being able to figure out where to put these curbside pickup areas is really kind of, it's key to them being able to make that being a productive part of their business.
Okay.
By taking the whole large portfolio and deciding where these things need to be put and how they're going to be able to do it in a company-wide fashion is something that we've been doing for quite some time. I mean, we're able to help roll out large projects like this and put a lot of planning behind them so they can go off without really any hitches throughout the process.
Okay, that makes sense. Brian, would you add anything there?
Yeah, I think, man, it's just, you know, society is going to challenge these businesses to adapt, right? You know, those that do are going to have more business. I mean, a good example of this would be, you know, Starbucks is slowly but surely moving out of all of their standalone locations into places nearby to that location where there is the ability to have a drive-through. They just did it at the local one that's right next to our office here in Pittsburgh. And, you know, I think you'll continue to see that. And so, you know, this is becoming the norm. You know, Amazon started it, COVID-19 finished it. You know, the convenience factor, the pickup factor, all of those things. It's like, man, people start to say, I don't really want to get out of my car. I'll drive an extra 2 miles to go to a location that I get coffee at that has a drive-through so that I can stay on the phone, be more productive. You know, if I'm talking to somebody about business, I can go to that drive-through and not have to, you know, I can just hit mute, listen, go through the drive-through, no inconvenience. I'm more productive, all those things. So I think you'll see the world challenging every business to adapt to these types of things. And so it's necessary for property managers, property owners, facility managers to be out in front of this stuff, you know, so that they're not being reactive and trying to get stuff done, and then it becomes a little bit more difficult.
Absolutely. So something we talk about a lot is leveraging technology. And I can see, so travel's tricky right now too. So if you're a portfolio manager and you have 20, say, locations spread out about 5 or 6 states, it's not always easy to get between. Each state has different rules and regulations. And sometimes you're going somewhere, they want you to stay there for 14 days and before you leave, and quarantine and all that sort of stuff. So it's tricky, you know, it's gotten tricky. Talk a little bit about the process, Brian. I'll start with you, of leveraging actual technology, what that looks like. Let's get a little granular here and talk about what that really looks like to help you support and have all that information and make fact-based decisions in your portfolios.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, technology is the key to it if you have multiple properties. And that, you know, when I say multiple properties, it could be as few as a couple, right? Because if you've got 3 decent sized properties, it's very difficult as a property or facility manager to know every inch of a, you know, of 500,000 square feet collectively of parking lot space, right? So, you know, when you talk about technology, to create the transparency and the consistency in a portfolio, it's the only way that you can get it, because otherwise, you know, and we've had some conversations recently with customers where they talked about, you know, they're receiving books from, you know, like an engineering firm or something like that. And, you know, that really doesn't work in today's world. It has to be a technologically driven approach to be able to be successful, because the visibility has to be there and everything's changing so quickly. So the minute that you print a book, it's already old because there's new information out there. Technology allows you to just very quickly and easily replace that. So I think there's 2 pieces to that technology, man, is like, you know, you've got the pavement assessments. And so being able to provide people with that portfolio view. On the flip side of that, for the planning and rollout of these types of projects, if the person that you're working with, whether that's a contractor or an engineering firm or whoever it is, doesn't have some sort of, you know, project management portal or technology solution that allows them to create visibility for the client through this process, it's just going to be a lot more difficult for the property facility manager or property owner to see a successful rollout, because they can't keep their finger on it, right? Versus, for us, we have created something that, is really a collaborative approach. Like, we want the customer to be involved. One of the things that I say to customers all the time is like, we don't want to just check every box, but we want you to see us checking every box through the power of this project portal that we have. And, that is, I can't imagine, as Mike said, there's two sides to it, the customer side and our side. I can't imagine being a contractor and trying to manage these types of rollouts without that technology.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's well said. That's well said. And the ability to share, like you're talking about getting a book or sort of doing stuff a little bit more the old fashioned way with site surveys. The ability to have that all digitally gives you the ability to share, right? And update and keep it real time. And it becomes documents that are living and breathing, not something that, oh, that's a site plan for 5 years ago. Well, boy, we've done 3 projects since then. I forget what it really looks like.
Yeah.
So that's really well said. Mike, I got a question for you. So, I think back, and I've been doing this for 17, 18 years, something like that.
Sure.
The last time I remember something, you're laughing at me, Brian, because you're only 41 today. I'm the old guy. I get it. Maybe it's been more like 25. Who remembers? But there was a lot of changes that went through. There's a tremendous amount of lawsuits 10, 15 years ago that pertain to accessibility and ADA access and the way parking lots and sidewalks and ramps and entrances and egresses, all that had to change. I sort of compare what's happening now. This is the next one that I've seen since then. I mean, that was a massive change. At that time, I think to some degree it got over-engineered. People were sort of forced. And again, there was a lot of lawsuits and stuff, so they sort of had to do it that way. This is a little bit different, but I think you still have to, when you're doing curbside pickup, you got to factor the accessibility routes, the parking spots, the distances, all that stuff. That still has to be part of the equation, right? So Mike, would you talk a little bit about when you're doing your assessment, you're a facilities or property manager, you're looking to make these changes, when do you need to bring in an engineer, and when do you think, you can rely on a team like us that aren't necessarily PEs, but have a lot of experience who can guide you in the right direction?
Well, I think Brian kind of hit it when he said there's 2 different types of ways to look at it. But, there's the customer way to look at it, and there's the contractor way to look at it. As a customer, they want to have the information that they believe is solid. And as a contractor, we believe with our experience that we can actually help, let's say, on-site engineer these projects a little bit. When you use an engineer, from what everything I've ever seen is, you're going to get, if you have 100 properties, you're going to get 100 individual site evaluations. They're going to tell you exactly what, in the best case scenario, if you have all the money in the world, that you're going to have, this is what we would do as engineers. Well, we all know in the real world that money is hard to come by sometimes, and then we have to take that project that they have engineered and try to, I don't know, I hate using this word, but dummy it down to a point where it fits into a budget. So I personally believe engineers have their place when it comes to shooting grades, when it comes to making sure that you have structural integrity if there's something that is already going wrong with that. But with our experience that we have, 25 years, 17, if you want to call it 17.
I don't know.
Me and Brian have been doing this for quite some time ourselves. I think that we have been able to see those differences where we can actually help a customer by building or on-site engineering or value engineering a project, compared to spending the large sums of money to have them give you an individual aspect on each individual project.
Sure. Okay. That's well said.
Yeah, and one more thing too, quick. Engineers are not doing what we do, as in taking a whole portfolio and looking at a portfolio. We work with the client in the beginning to decide what's important to them. Is it aesthetics? Is it safety? Is it these new drive lanes and whatnot? And we actually take all that into consideration before we start to help them build a solution for their large portfolio, where an engineer is going to just use their objective views that they learned in $150,000 worth of college and give them an objective view without thinking about what that whole portfolio looks like. Gotcha. So we've been able to use a portfolio view in our minds to be able to help create larger scopes for 100 properties instead of just 1 or 2 and overbuilding them.
Okay, that's great. Anything to add there, Brian?
I would just say, Mike kind of made the point. I'll just rephrase it a little bit is that, when we are working with these customers, the difference between us and engineers, and it's again, nothing against engineers, they do a great job and they provide us with high levels of details that make performing jobs easy. What they don't always take into consideration is A, the client's budget, B, the customer experience in these places where we're going to be working. Is not, they're just technical, right? So they're going to
Sure.
give you exactly what's required, by law, by the book, by this. And to Mike's point, we have the ability and experience as contractors to, what we call value engineer. And it is, in most cases, there is a solution that will work that is a fraction of the price, and that comes from both the evaluation standpoint and then the work being performed. A lot of times we can make it work for a lot less money on both sides of that.
Okay, well, that's great. Yeah, that's going to be a part of it as well as the cost standpoint, where especially when you're looking across the portfolio, it's a tremendous amount of money to spend with maybe an engineering firm or something along those lines, where you're getting a depth of information sometimes you don't necessarily need, right? That's just could be a little bit of overkill. Plenty of friends that are engineers. They're great people. We're not saying don't bring them in when you need to. There's our engineering disclaimer. They're good. They're good people. Awesome. So having an understanding of, regional type facilities and knowing, because we work in all the markets around the country more heavily in some than others. But what's the impact, Brian? What's the advantage that we have knowing somebody's region, knowing somebody's territory when you're putting these things in place? Because it's not going to be the same in every state. That we see every state right now. With this the COVID-19, there's 50 different sets of rules out there right now, whether it's the opening or what buildings you can go into and all that sort of stuff. How does our unique ability, or someone that's like a contractor like us, unique ability to know their territory, how does it help people?
I think it's huge, man, because, I can tell you from experience, managing these types of rollouts, hundreds of stores, or, whether it's evaluating hundreds of stores or performing work across the board at a bunch of them, it takes a special skill set to be able to manage these types of projects. And you really have to have your infrastructure inside of your company set up for that, right? So, and again, nothing against the local contractors, but it's just not a normal thing for them to do massive rollouts like that, versus, your national players or larger regional players. They're typically a lot more familiar with that type of thing. And there are very unique challenges that go along with this. You mentioned a few of them. There's different rules and regulations. Where do you need permits? Where do you not? What is, you got to keep track of the weather in every single market. Not every person that's not used to doing that is going to have that. And then, the challenges of how do you communicate? How do you organize and distribute information to the people that are in the field in a consistent format so that these jobs actually get performed the way that they were planned, right? That all of those details matter. And so having experience with these types of national and regional rollouts is imperative. We were talking before we got started here about one that we did last year. It was like 70 something locations of pretty decently sized striping jobs. And we got that work done in under 45 days. And that is not an easy task to do. And, if we didn't have the experience and the team that we have, I would never have been comfortable even agreeing to being able to do something like that. So I think it's important for, the property and facility managers maybe listening to this to understand that, you just want to make sure that those things are in place, that there are processes, clearly defined processes of how these things get handled, so that they're not, getting into a situation with someone that just lacks the experience of doing it, right? These things are difficult and they require a high level of attention and care. And so the companies that you're working with should have a lot of experience in doing this.
That particular project you're talking about too, Brian, that was fascinating for me to watch. Without saying the name of the company, I believe they're the world's largest online retailer. How many times have they had to change the layouts because of, again, the business? In their case, their business has grown They've had to add to their fleet. They've had to add the way that they move around their parking lots, all their logistics. And having that information when they call to say, yeah, we did that one in, Des Moines. We moved this spot here. Okay, here's what it looks like right now. What do you want to do? And you can do it over the phone. You don't have to get on a plane. You don't have to pull a facilities manager from the West Coast to meet you here, blah, blah, blah. It's minutes and not days of putting these plans together, right?
Yeah, and I would add to that, man, we've got unique technology that a lot of people don't have that we've invested into for those types of challenges specifically, so that, the team that works on that stuff can pull up and have access to aerial imagery that's less than 3 months old 99% of the time, right? So,
sure.
We've run into situations where we're supposed to be, striping a section of a parking lot, and there's still an island there that was supposed to be removed.
Sure.
We can predict that and not have the same issues that people that don't have that type of technology and process in place of checking all those things would have. And those seem like little issues, but when you're doing a multi, 100 stores, 50 stores, 50 locations, 200 locations, those things matter, and they add up fast, and they cause a lot of friction for the people on the other end, right? Just trying to manage all of that stuff while they have the rest of their jobs to do.
So Mike, that's good stuff, Brian. Thank you. Mike, when we're talking about regions, regionally, by state, by municipality, maybe it's by, whatever it is, by geography, do you see a lot of differentiation in standards on things like, say, signage or striping, or that sort of stuff that people are going to have to deal with while they're changing their parking lots around?
Absolutely. There's some places require permits for parking, some places don't. Some places require that you have pre-drawn plans for your parking, and others don't. I was just actually looking at one yesterday with a team member of ours, and we had to try to figure out, let's just say fire lanes, drive lanes, and then all of a sudden there's an island in the way that Brian just had brought up. I mean, that was a pretty new one for me, or fresh one for me, because it was just yesterday. And then we got to figure these, and this was in the state of Texas, which is completely different than the state of Oklahoma, which is, an actual state right next door to it. So many things change, and we have a team of people that work with our networks, and then also in-house that research and study this stuff all the time. And with Brian's comment on overhead views, we can get the up-to-date latest information and be able to nib these things down a little bit before we get a contractor on site to say, hey, there's an island in the way. What do you want me to do? Well, we knew that the island was in the way. We have an answer for that solution already, because we discussed that with the project manager yesterday. So, but real quick, I just wanted to throw a quick shout out to the people that we have out there doing this stuff right now. Eli, some people in our industry know Eli now, but he is one of the brightest young minds, and Eli's store has done a lot for us to be able to do these things that we do. So I just want to throw a quick shout out. And we got people out right now. I think we've inspected, my number is, as of today, 77 properties over 200,000 square feet in the last 27 days. So
wow,
we're out there moving, and that stuff can happen. And then, with the reporting that we do, those reports on those 80 or 75 properties will be out within the next 2 weeks. So within a month, 80 properties, 200 square feet plus on each one in less than 45 days.
Wow.
So
that's phenomenal.
That's just some of the capabilities we have. And like I said, I just want to throw a quick shout out to the people who are making this happen for us.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome, man. Well, way to take it home, Mike. Thank you. Brian, any parting shots? Anything you want to leave us with?
No, I think, the biggest thing that I kept thinking the whole time Mike was talking, and, just thinking about what does this mean for the customer? And I think that, that knowledge, the technology, the things that, allow this stuff to be done, it creates a better customer experience. And, I know that a lot of times we've asked hundreds of customers the same questions, and, the things that we talked about today, a lot of those are the consistent challenges that we hear don't exist out there in our industry. And so I just want to let people know that they actually do exist in our industry. You just have to look, and it's the right contractor for the right project, right? And that is, that's the deal. We're not the best contractor for every project. The smaller they get, the less competitive we are in certain situations, right? It just depends. And so it has to be the right contractor for the right project. And so I just want to tell everybody out there that, those things do exist to make your life easier. You just have to go search it out and make sure that, again, you're looking at what are you actually dealing with, and who is the right person or company to be doing that for you.
Right on. Nailed it. Awesome. Well, I can't thank you guys enough for the time. I think this was another good, informative, interesting podcast that we put together here. Hopefully facilities managers, property managers, and everybody else out there that gets a chance to listen to this gleans a little bit of value. I think I'd recap by saying, you've got your priorities while you're doing this, while you're making massive changes in your parking lot. Safety, obviously, being the first one. You want to make sure the accessibility and all those rules are followed. But your parking lot is also becoming your lobby now, right? You're moving the interior to the exterior, and aesthetics matter too. So you want to find somebody that's going to help you with the design piece of it to really make sense of the whole thing and make it look good, and ultimately make your customers happy, because that's what we're all out here to do. So thank you, Brian. Happy 41st birthday. Enjoy the rest of the day, my friend. Mike, thank you for all the great information. Look forward to seeing everybody again next time. Thanks for joining us on the Pavement Group podcast.